phone.
Good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot. And today we're going to talk of something very, very interesting, the rise of rockets. Well, more than any other weapon system in recent battles, it's the rockets which have made a difference. Everyone thinks it is drones, everyone thinks it is cyber, everyone thinks it is AI, but the real revolution has been in rockets. I mean, it's actually astounding. And the way rockets have been used is, as I read this, as I researched, I realized, look, there's a revolution which just happened. And I did research. I wrote a paper for Clause. It's been published in their annual journal. And then I published an abridged version of that in Beyond. And now I'm going to present it to you. And I'm going to touch on something which normally people don't talk of, or they talk of hazily. We'll talk of hypersonics also. And in the end, we'll talk of a rocket force for India. Okay, so here we go. The first thing is, this is the third in the series of technology and war. In the first, I, spoke of military technologies of the century and their effect in the battle and their applicability in the battle. Day before yesterday, I spoke of small and cheap technologies in battle. I would suggest that both of you, all of you, see both these videos. It's interesting. At least for me, it was very interesting. And what's more, lo and behold, today I got a call from someone who said, look, we want to do something with AI and predictive intelligence, something about what we can do at battalion level and brigade level. I said, have a look at this small and cheap technologies in battle and get back to me. I'll pilot something, whatever the army wants. We are waking up. Okay. Now, I did speak of this military technologies of this century and a whole lot of this thing. But today I'm going to talk of the last row, the second one from the left, that is engines, propulsion, control, and guidance. That's rockets. The sense of that is rockets. Of course, rockets don't live alone. They need all other technologies, and we'll talk of it. But today we're going to see a mix of the tactical, the strategic, and the technical, and the technology. Okay. Now, I'm going to put it in our context largely. So let's see what are the technologies for high altitude and how they affect the rockets. Right. This is an interesting slide. The first thing you need when you employ a rocket, wherever, is battlefield transparency. So you need space technology, you need GIS, you need manned oblique unmanned systems, you need night vision sensors, and you need AI. No doubt. And what the rockets give you? They give you reach, they give you range. So when you have range, you need propulsion technologies, you need manned and unmanned systems, you need control and guidance. And if you have large ranges, you need precision. Otherwise, you'll be firing all over the countryside. So you need terminal guidance, you need seekers, you need AI, you need space technology, you need designation or acquisition of target. Part of the Reiki strike integration complex, which I will talk of today. If you have these three, then it is only axiomatic that you need networks So you need fiber optics, you need communications, you need cyber technology and AI. AI being the common thread almost throughout. Okay. So where do we go? Look at this. This tells you how guided versus unguided ammunitions have progressed over the years. In Operation Desert Storm, see the amount of, it was for 43 days, and see the amount of ammunition which were spent. The blue, dark blue ones being the guided ammunitions, and the pink ones being unguided. So you see the inset picture in picture, Chota Wala, and you see the guided versions with just under 10% in Desert Storm in 91. And I thought it was hell of a lot. It was the first time Desert Storm came into a drawing room where we could see these flying all around. Right? Thereafter, Gulf War II, Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, 2003, all that. You see the guided weapons have going up. Now you're looking at about 60%. But if you take the Ukraine war, where these have been used extensively, my guess is it would have come down. You would have probably your guided versus unguided will be around 40%. And that's for the simple reason that this war has gone on for 2 years. And over 2 years, no country can afford so many guided weapons. Russia is pooping off guided weapons as if there's no tomorrow. But so it's pooping off unguided artillery ammunition as if there's no tomorrow. Can you imagine? I read a report where they're producing something like 12,000 to 13,000 rounds per day. That's about 4.5 million artillery shells in a year. That's humongous. But that I'll talk of a little later next month. Right. Now, what do future wars portend? Future wars, what I read, will be increasingly dominated by the application of force at extended ranges to exploit the advantages of information dominance. So there's a synergy of extended ranges and information dominance. The RSI, what is RSI? Recce Strike Integration. It has three basic elements. The first element is precision ammunitions. Second is advanced sensors with wide area coverage and automated command and control systems, which I spoke of. Then, of course, the Americans call it long range precision strike, the Russians call it reconnaissance strike. Okay, and this can be used almost synonymously one with the other. The interesting part, which which almost goes with this, is that a ton of PGMs typically replaces 12 to 20 tons of unguided ammunitions on a tonnage per target. So, as per this analysis, you need about 12 to 20 times of unguided ammunition vis-a-vis guided ammunition. But it saves as much as 30 to 40 tons of fuel per ton of PGMs delivered. Right? So there's a huge benefit of logistics. There's a huge benefit of capacities if you use PGMs. So you'll have to think of both these things, and one has to weigh these issues with the cost and then go ahead with everything. But people are looking at precision seriously. Right. There's also a theory that there's a fourth industrial revolution which is on. Okay. And what's that fourth wave theory? He says, in this fourth wave, we're going to reduce the price of precision by small and cheap sensors. by advanced manufacturing. Advanced manufacturing might be a costly technology, but it results in making everything cheap. Now, generation of smaller, smarter, and cheaper weapons. I spoke of this day before yesterday. And then you're going to move into an area of mass precision. This is a new terminology, mass precision, which will see a convergence of an array of technologies, various technologies, which I explained in the first two slides. Now, in this article, he says a quick question is which nation can most rapidly and effectively adapt to this revolution? My bet, no nation can. The nation which is the fastest gets some advantage. If it's a short war or long wars, these get nullified. So take some of these analysis with a pinch of salt. Okay, what are the technologies which are involved in this entire game of rockets? You're talking of material technology because hypersonics and all need extremely difficult materials. I'll talk of it a little later. Propellant technology, because if you don't have the right propulsion technology, you can't go ahead. Then you need aerodynamic modeling. The faster you go, like hypersonics, the modeling has to be very, very, you know, complicated. And those designs have to come through AI. You need control and guidance. At high speeds, control and guidance is very difficult. Okay, AI for design and control. You need precision and intelligence systems. You need space communication. Space. And as I told you, space is becoming ubiquitous. You need space for almost everything today. And we'll talk of it separately down the line. You need nanotechnologies. You need warheads, complicated warheads, which are effective on the target. And you need extensive testing facilities. Otherwise, you're not going to develop, you're not going to use them, you're not going to train. This is something which people miss out. If you don't have training facilities, in the operational areas where you're going to fight, you're going to miss out. Okay. I said rise of rockets. Why have rockets risen? It's not rockets alone, it's missiles and rockets together. Rockets have been used as geopolitical tools of coercion. They've been used in conventional battles, and they've been used as by non-state actors as tool of power. In terms of the geopolitical tools of coercion, look at North Korea and China. The way they've grown their forces, rocket forces, and they rely on the rocket forces to pose a threat, and they coerce everyone. North Korea has been coercing Japan, South Korea, and USA, and China has been coercing Taiwan straight. The day is not far when he's going to start coercing us. And their coercioners, they've been firing. They've been deploying. Okay. And then in conventional battles, rockets and missiles, look at Russia, look at Ukraine. The kind of rockets and missiles they've used is not funny. Long range, precision guided, hypersonic, the works. Anti-ship missiles, very successfully, mind you. And we'll talk of that down the line. And as a non-state tool of power, you have the Hamas, Houthis, Hezbollah, and Iran. And we'll talk of it. Iran not as a non-state tool of power, but as a state tool of power. Okay. Let's look at it in conventional settings. Conventionally, rockets overcome terrain friction by striking deep. Nothing stops them. No rain, no sun, no snow. They can go. Tanks might not go, Infantry might not move, but these rockets will move. They change the situation without maneuver. The fire and maneuver are two complementary things which don't happen, which is not happening in today's battlefield. Both these achieve political aims by deliberately firing on specific targets, ammunition dumps, and for example, uh, Russia fired on the Polish border and told NATO, "You come in and we'll hammer you there." And what did they do? They fired the Kinzhal hypersonic, more as a political weapon to say, "Look, you're defenseless." Right? Russia has posted with nuclear warheads and fired conventional warheads to achieve deterrence. They said, "Look, this is what we can do conventionally. I am prepared to go nuclear." It has used air, hypersonic, cruise, guided missiles, rockets, and guns, all to deter not NATO from getting directly involved, and successfully. Now, Ukraine uses rockets and cruise missiles very imaginatively. You'll have to grant them that, right? And innovatively. What have they done? They've sunk a large part of the Russian Navy. They've used it with drones, cruise missiles, rockets, Moscow, and half the Russian Navy is down in the Black Sea. They've also done firepower ambushes. They've undertaken track and kill operations, and they've carried out spoiling attacks. It's something. New forms of application of firepower. Major factor that rockets and missiles need to be used in conjunction with drones and a good command and control system to dominate the battlefield. You have these three, you dominate the battlefield. Okay. Now let's look at the Houthis, the non-state tool of power. Actually, people think, what have they done? People have never understood what Houthis have done in Yemen. And if you read their history, it's not now. They've been fighting for the past 10 years with rockets and missiles. They've targeted Yemen's government, right? And the Saudi bases, population centers, infrastructure. And all this has resulted in a humanitarian crisis. Not new, 4 years back. But we didn't see the contours of using these are just coming about. And then the Aramco attack in 2019. I'll talk of it a little later. It's spectacular. They took out 2 airfields, 2 oil fields, and major oil refineries deep in Saudi Arabia, over 1,100 kilometers. They've also, used surface-to-air missiles of various varieties to down Saudi coalition aircraft. The Saudi pilots have been rendered almost impotent. Just because they used their rocket and missile arsenal, they secured a power sharing agreement in Yemen. Half of Yemen is under their control. Okay? This is the way they've used. So there is something conventional, there's something non-conventional, but they've now become a state force of their own. And what's more, today Houthis are exercising sea denial. They deny sea sitting on land. Okay, they fire drones, anti-shipment missiles against international shippings, oil tanker, U.S. Navy warships. Yesterday or day before, I think one tanker got hit. So there's something different they're doing. And why? How? Rockets. They could be crude, sophisticated. It doesn't matter. They could throw 10 at the enemy. One needs to hit when they're achieving it. Okay. Just today evening, I saw already the environmental effects of going around Cape of Good Hope has gone up. The Suez Canal is down. Egypt's finances are down. Okay, there's global inflation. Strategic effects. Okay, this is how they carried out the attack on the Aramco oil field. I mean, it's not exactly from Sana they carried out the attacks, but somewhere North Yemen, over 1100 kilometers at the Quraysh and the Abu Baik oil fields. They fired about 14 drones. 14 drones come cruise missiles, right? How they control, we don't know. Whether it's a swarm, we don't know. Still, no one knows. But they put both these oil fields with precision attacks out of equation for over 6 months. At that time, 2019, none of us were alive to this whole story. But today we are. Okay, what about Hezbollah? Hezbollah is termed to be a militia trained like an army and equipped like a state. 2006, they had 15,000 rockets. Today, they have 1,30,000 to 1,50,000. These are used as a tool of deterrence and terror combination. They use shoot and scoot tactics. Okay, it makes detection, suppression, and retaliation extremely difficult. And most importantly, it negates Israeli air power. Israel can't use its air power against Hezbollah. If they do that, they might get shot. And these Hezbollah chaps fight from behind a civilian facade. And what are they trying? They want rockets with more than 250 kilometers. And they're getting help from Iran. The moment they do that, they can fire halfway into Iran. And you'll have more problems. And Iran, after their attack on Rafah, things are not going to be very easy anymore. Things are going to worsen. And you'll see this playing out. Okay? Then Hamas. Hamas, everyone knows. They're still fighting. Day before yesterday, they launched the rocket attack against Tel Aviv. Nothing has hit Tel Aviv. But threat, terror. They're telling everyone, we are here, we are not going away. And we'll fire rockets. That's their power. They have a small arsenal, but they've been very innovative with their tunnels. They use tunnels with rockets. Something we couldn't have thought of. Okay? Water pipes converted to rocket launchers or the rocket tubes. Hardened with a full-fledged factory manufacturing everything. It's been 8 months. 6,000 rockets. They are surviving. We don't know how many they have or don't have left. They're surviving. So far, we have not got a single evidence in this 8 months that Israelis have destroyed Hamas rockets and their capability to fight. Now, who's the mother of all this? Iran. Okay. I'll keep the slide on so that you people know. We saw the recent attack of Iran against Israel, where they fired 300 of these drones and rockets and missiles. Got shot down. But what if they had fired 6,000? And that's what the message they were conveying. How many they will just saturate your air defense systems. And then some will get through. Sheer numbers and volumes can overwhelm air defenses. Iran proliferates, we know. And that's how they extend their power. And it's a case study in projection far beyond borders without Navy and Air Force. See, you look at China and you look at Iran. Who projects power more? Force projection and power projection is far more by Iran than compared to China also. China does economic power projection, not military power projection. Okay, but Iran doesn't have an air force, and it is offsetting its air force by use of missiles. This tactic is being used by China against USA. Because China doesn't have bases, so it's gone in for long range rocket systems and its PLARF. And in against us in Himalayas, they can't deploy their air power, so they're using their missile power. That's it. Missile power is the cheaper air force. Now you combine the drones and the missiles. You do a front end integration with space. Okay, you then see that you don't need an air force. And if you can put in some good air defense equipment with you, missiles, then the air forces don't cross the IB also or the border. And that's what has been happening in Russia. So you look at it any way. The China's PLARF with its long range, it's offsetting the requirement of bases, it's offsetting the requirement of a strong navy or a long range navy or air forces. So there's a lesson in it for us. There's a major lesson. Are we heeding it? I don't think so. Okay. So if I summarize rockets and missiles, what are they? They're choice tools of power, coercion, and terror for state as well as non-state actors. Okay, their enhanced ranges outpace conventional artillery or aircraft. Okay, combined with drones, they expand and threaten every corner of the battlefield and sometimes even beyond. They have great strategic reach. A new vista of non contact warfare with positive escalatory controls has come into being. That means I can posture and threaten my enemy with long range systems, fire one or two, and say, look, I will, escalation is in my hands. This is just a demonstration. I can fire more. That's what Israel has done with Iran, and Iran has also done with Israel. Non contact warfare between both the nations. But the escalatory control is exercised. And you can use this and you can say, I'm going to only fire conventional weapons, no nuclear, so that it doesn't go into the nuclear realm. They're also cheaper and far less complicated than air forces to acquire and maintain and train. You don't need a pilot, you don't need anyone. Just let it go. And most of the time you might not fire that piece, but the uh, terror value of that goes across. Whether you're a terrorist or not, the anxiety in the enemy that look, this fellow has got more missiles and these missiles can hit me affects the populace. And they're flexible in employment. You can employ it, like I said, any role you want today, you can employ it. Very light on training and infrastructure requirement. Yeah, naturally, your more sophisticated rockets and missiles need heavy infrastructure, but not normal. Okay, you can produce them through crude methods as also sophisticated methods. The visual impact is quite a bit. I mean, just think and the propaganda value which goes with the rocket. The thing is that guns lose their precision as range increases. Rockets you can build precision in. I'm struggling for precision in my project because gun dynamics are like that. It is not because I don't have the knowledge. I'm not able to overcome certain physical things, and no one has been able to overcome. And if you have precision in gun systems, they can be spoofed and negated. I spoke of it. How your Excalibur rounds, their efficacy today is just 10% in battle, where it was 90% efficacy and 10% ineffective. Today it is the other way around. Today 90% non-effective, 10% effective, and it's a very costly system. Okay, it can be employed in conventional and nuclear roles. It can survive anti-aircraft defenses. Doesn't matter. But an aircraft going down is very difficult because you lose the pilot and you lose the aircraft. But this one anyway you're losing him. Let him go. Very difficult to knock him off. And if you use saturation tactics with cheap missiles or rockets, you will achieve the same effect or more. Technology gives better options in producing and employing rockets and missiles en masse. Okay, modern missiles with higher speeds, range, navigation, advanced materials, and endurance can be developed at speed through dual use space technologies. Printed rockets is the order of the day. What a rocket motor took you 2 months to make earlier, today you can print in 3 days. Because in a rocket, the rocket motor is the most complex item. Hypersonic missiles, new chapter on the horizon, we'll talk of it. Use of rockets and missiles controlled with drones and satellite systems backed by AI-driven command and control systems. It's called the Recce Strike Integration Complex, or the long-range fire system is deadly, and it is set to grow. Just to give you an idea, the entire Marine Corps of US has been reorganized. And what is the reorganization based on? Small distributed units with long range precision fires. And I spoke about this on the first day. They don't have tanks, they don't have traditional artillery anymore. M777s, they're all junked. The M777s were 50% in the Marines and 50% with the US Navy. The Marines say we don't want any M777 and cannon artillery, they've junked it. Long range precision fire is what they're looking at. So the battlefield is changing, the weapons of war are changing. The weapons which will give you clear output, they are also changing. Okay. Now let me talk of hypersonics, because the rest of the things generally most of you will get a hang of. Because hypersonics is something which everyone talks of but really doesn't know. What is hypersonic? Anything which travels over 5 Mach is hypersonic. And this is DF-17, a hypersonic weapon system with China from 2019. They paraded it in their National Day in 2019. Okay. Now, what is special about the hypersonics and all that? Two things. One is the rocket motor, which can generate speeds up to 5 Mach or more. Some talk 8 Mach, some talk 10 Mach, but it doesn't matter beyond a point. And the second is you need the materials to withstand those speeds. Because what happens with those speeds is the surface area gets heated up, right? and the material starts deforming. You get thermal layers and all that, and the design is complicated. So you need new materials, advanced materials, all those which I spoke of earlier. And then at that high speed, you have to control. You can't let him go all around the countryside. He has to go as per a path. So it becomes complicated. Okay. Now, so I mean, one has to understand what's so complicated about this rocket system and this rocket motor. I just thought I'll give you a brief idea, very brief idea of what this technology is all about. I gave it in one talk 3-4 months back, but I'll repeat it in very simplistic terms so that you understand what a hypersonic rocket motor is. Okay. Now, what happens in a normal guided missile? You could have a liquid propellant or a solid propellant. Okay. The thing is that if you see the one on the left, okay, you have a liquid called in blue, which is the oxidizer, and another liquid fuel, right, which is the fuel. Okay. In Prithvi, it used to be RFNA, the fuel, that is red fuming nitric acid, and liquid oxygen. I remember it from my 88 days. Or it could be solid. You could have a solid core of an oxidizer and solid fuel in whichever configuration. That's a normal rocket. Because in this volume you have oxidizer, you get less fuel, and hence the speeds, the viability of this rocket, everything is limited. Right? But then you go into the ramjet. What is a ramjet? It's an air breathing engine. Why is it called an air breathing engine? In this, you use complete, there's no oxidizer in the fuel. It's just fuel rich propellant. No oxidizer. Oxidizer you take from the air because there's oxygen in the air. But the amount of oxygen in the air, the concentration of oxygen in the air is just about 16%, 15-16% of atmosphere. This has to go up to 80-90%. Right? So how does it go up? Which means you have to take the atmosphere and ram it into the jet, which means that more air comes in, which means that the amount of oxygen goes up. So you have to pressurize. How do you pressurize it? You pressurize it by moving your missile forward. If you move forward at a high pace, air hits you, doesn't it? You go put your head out of a car, air hits you. Same principle. So you move your missile at 1 Mach plus. And when you move a missile at 1 Mach plus, the air which comes in front is concentrated and the amount of oxygen there is gone up. And then you inject fuel into it. And you get a supersonic exhaust, and this missile moves fast. That's the ramjet. It's rammed. Air is rammed into it. It's also called an air breathing engine. Right? I'm putting it as simply as possible. The only thing I'll tell you here, little complicated, understand. Once the air comes into the ramjet, into the burning chamber or the combustion chamber, it naturally slows down to subsonic speeds. Okay. But once it burns, it goes out at supersonic speed. Okay. So this is a ramjet. Ramjets you can go up to 3 to 4 Mach. The BrahMos missile is about 3 Mach. It's a ramjet. Okay. Now comes the next scramjet. What is scramjet? Scramjet S is supersonic, C is combustion ramjet. So it's called supersonic combustion ramjet. What is supersonic combustion? In this, if you see, the body is made, such a manner that the air which is rammed in front goes through a constriction. There's something called the Bernoulli's theorem, where water which goes in a pipe goes very fast. So same thing, you can pressurize water to go at very fast. There's even in a river, look at it very simplistically in a river. There are places where river is wide and the water feels gentle. There are when the river becomes narrow, then you have rapids there. Same volume in channelized. Same effect here. So you get air with a bigger volume and constrict it at the same speed. So the air which gets into the combustion chamber comes at supersonic speed. When it comes at supersonic speed, the concentration of oxygen goes very high. And then when you inject a fuel, you get a supersonic, hypersonic exit, actually. And what is hypersonic? You go to 5 Mach plus. This is in broad. Okay. Then what happens? You have 2-3 different kinds of hypersonic systems. But the normal thing today is what people talk of, the glide principle. That's the second aspect of the hypersonic I wanted to explain. In this, a rocket is fired. It goes up somewhere below the atmosphere. The atmosphere goes from the ground to the air till about 100 kilometers. Below the atmosphere, right, in the rocket lets a glider go through. That's what you see. The main the booster jets are thrown off, and thereafter there's a glide vehicle which goes. And this glide is released at about 10 Mach or 5 Mach or 8 Mach or whatever. And then this glider is controlled to the target. And at the target, it can let go a conventional weapon. And this entire process is controlled by a satellite from the top. Now, how does the glider maintain its speed? It maintains its speed. It's a glider. There's no propulsion thereafter. It maintains its speed by the lift which is generated. And the thing with the hypersonic, which not many people tell you, is as it reaches the target, its speed goes down. That is why today the Chinese are trying to fire off a missile at the end towards the terminal phase of the trajectory. The glide vehicle is just a carrier. That's a very complex operation. So far, the Chinese also not been very successful at it. Okay. Okay. I will talk about this and I'll explain to you the kinds of hypersonics and all that. I'll explain what the difference is. Look at the blue line. That's a ballistic missile. What happens in a ballistic missile? The ballistic missile goes up, goes out of the atmosphere into the space, and in the space it jettisons its boosters. Thereafter, it is like a normal artillery round going. Only thing is, in space, it maintains speed. It goes faster because travel is much faster than Mach 1, 2, 3, 4. So then it is made to re-enter at a point with some thrusters. And it comes at great speed and hits the target. But it's like a artillery round. It's a ballistic trajectory. Now this ballistic trajectory, you can change by having a multiple re-entry vehicle. Multiple independently targeted re-entry vehicle, whatever, or Agnify with the MIRV which we tried. What happens in that? It goes as a ballistic trajectory to the top, and somewhere at wherever at a pre-designated point, it lets go 3 or 4 uh, independent, re-entry vehicles. All these vehicles, 3, 4, 5, 10, depending on the thing, they are all independent. They re-enter the atmosphere independently, and then they maneuver to the target, and they maneuver to 2 to 3 targets. They have their advantages, right? They can maintain speed. Um, they can target independent targets. One doesn't know which target is being maintained. All that. Okay. The next is the HGV, hypersonic glide vehicle, in red. Now, what happens in that is that, like in the earlier case, I showed you the rocket is launched, then at some point the glider is let go, and the glider takes a path which is predetermined or it is controlled by by a satellite and maneuvers its way to the terminal end. Right. So that's a hypersonic glide vehicle. Then you have the hypersonic cruise missile. It can be a cruise missile also. Okay. Like BrahMos. BrahMos is a cruise missile, but it's a ramjet. But you put a scramjet on it, and it could go up to 8 to 10 Mach also. But that's it. I'm just putting it hyperbole, but that's not so simple. A cruise missile can hug the thing and go. Normally, the hypersonic cruise missiles have an altitude of about 20 to 40 kilometers. A hypersonic glide vehicle could go up to 100 kilometers. But the thing with the hypersonic glide missile and the cruise missile is both of them operate within the atmosphere. They don't operate outside the atmosphere, whereas the re-entry vehicles and the ballistic trajectories go outside the atmosphere. Then there's this guy called FOBS. What is FOBS? Okay, it is fractional orbit bombardment system. So what happens in this? So you let a missile go, it orbits the Earth, right? At a point of time where the orbit is, that's why it's fractional orbit. You don't need to necessarily make it go around the Earth fully. Wherever you want, that orbit is terminated fractionally, and the missile dips onto the target from the top. And what the Chinese have done is they use this fractional orbit system. They fired one into the atmosphere and made it orbit and then re-enter. And when it re-entered, it let go a hypersonic glide vehicle, HGV, which hit the target. It actually didn't hit the target, it went 40 kilometers away from the target. But they proven the technology. And the second test which they did let go a missile at the end. So this is something. So when you look at hypersonics, you're looking at FOBs or a hypersonic glide vehicle. Or a fractional bombardment vehicle, fractional bombardment system with hypersonic glide or a hypersonic cruise missile. So you have 3 types of hypersonics. What is the advantage? They cannot be detected. They're very fast. They confuse the enemy. You don't know which target they're targeting because they're maneuverable. All are maneuverable. They overwhelm the enemy air defense systems with their sheer speed. They can't be detected because they are not in space. Yeah, it's not as if they can't be detected at all. They can be detected with space-based surveillance. So if you want to defend against them, you need space-based surveillance. So this is what hypersonic systems are, and they are revolutionizing, asymmetric war of a different variety. Everyone wants it. But today, the only 3 countries who really have hypersonic systems: USA, not fully; They've tested. That's about all. And that too not successfully. China and Russia. And India is in the process of testing. You'll ask me a question, sir. How great is this hypersonic weapon system? Understand. Hypersonic weapon systems are game changers, but they are not war winners so far. At the end of the day, a hypersonic system takes out one target only. So it has to be a high value target. It has to be a time specific target. It has to have that impact. So China wants to hit the carriers and call it a carrier killer. So all these issues come into the thing with hypersonic. They're complicated, they're costly. Right? They're approximately one third more costly than a ballistic missile or a MIRV. So I hope I've given you a broad idea of hypersonic missiles, because the normal rockets employment technology is simple. Understanding hypersonics is a little difficult. Will you win the war without the hypersonic? You could. Will you win the war with a hypersonic? You might not. But you have the ascendancy that I have this technology and I have this weapon which I can hit and I cannot be detected, and there'll be very important targets and I can achieve great ranges. That's the thing. Okay. Now, this is a comparison. This is a very interesting comparison of ballistics missiles with uh, re-entry vehicles, maneuverable re-entry vehicles, subsonic cruise missiles, and hypersonic glide missiles. You see, both the top ones are mature technologies. All of them are accurate and maneuverable. But when you come down, it's not, the technology is unproven, it's expensive. Extreme heating, which I said so. Hypersonic boost glide missiles, that's the HGV. Whereas when you look at the ballistic missiles with re-entry vehicles, they're predictable, detectable path in the mid course and in the terminal course. You can predict it. But they're expensive. When you look at subsonic cruise missiles, they're the least expensive. But they're slow. Though here I have said it is got limited range, actually subsonic missiles give you the max range. Okay. Now, what subsonic missiles can't do and others can do, others are fast, they have long range and can penetrate air defense and terminal ballistic missile defenses. Okay. The subsonic cruise missiles can survive against mid-course and ballistic missile defenses because they do terrain hugging. What we used to know as TERCOM, terrain command guidance. Okay, of course, the top two are got very mature technology, right? So this is how the whole three things have fitted in, whether new technologies in rockets and motors and missiles. I'm not talking of crude stuff. In all conditions, you need space, you need AI, you need nanotechnologies, you need miniaturization and everything. Okay, do you need a rocket force in India? That's a quick question which I thought I'll put across to all of you. Let me put a few things across. India has the technology. We have the wherewithal to produce any kind of rocket missile. The DRDO has already done some work on hypersonic. It's a matter of time. We have ramjet technology, we have scramjet technology, and we have propulsion technology, we have airframes, everything virtually we have. We also have a reasonable inventory and adequate capability to accelerate our production should we need it tomorrow. But then you need to have dedicated effort for it. You need to have a plan. Today, I put out a tweet on how Russia has ramped up its production to 4.5 million artillery rounds in a year, and yet it is importing from North Korea and Iran. What do we do in case we have a long, you know, duration war? We have to think, and I put it out in my tweet today. And I'm going to do a program as to how we can do it, and this is going to be practical on ground with what knowledge I have. Okay, and this is it's not going to be abstract. I'm going to this thing. I'll do it in the first week of June. Hopefully, after the new government comes in, so that I'll go back with that tweet. I'll show that tweet and explain to you. Then all of you can go and tell the government do something. Not now. Everyone is campaigning. So we have a reasonable inventory. It's not as if we don't know, but we lack the vision to put it all together. We don't have this thing called the Reiki strike integration or the ability to stitch your long range precision together. Your integration of surveillance and long range firepower through a dedicated command and control system is lacking. Let me be upfront. Hopefully, theaterization should give us some value out of this and people start looking at it. Give it to all your friends. This, whoever, whether it's a Fauji or a non-Fauji, and say, yeah, someone should ask these leaders. Someone should ask the present command and control setup. Someone should ask the present chiefs, what are we doing about it? The world has changed quite a bit. Or you evolve a method of fighting with what you have. Okay. What are the other issues? You don't have a national strategy. You don't have a national security strategy. Okay, forget it. But do you have a national strategy for rockets and missiles? We have a problem. ISRO and DRDO don't look together. So you have a civilian program which doesn't, function with the, military program. See, rockets and aerospace is the same. The technologies, everything is the same. We must be the only country in the world which has a air show in Hyderabad for civil and has an air show in Bangalore for Forge. No other country does it. In all other countries, whether it's in Dubai or Paris or London or wherever air shows are, Farnborough used to have, air shows are held, rockets, missiles, civil aircraft, everything is shown. Only in our country we are like this. गवर्नमेंट है भाई हमारा, आप उसी गवर्नमेंट को लेके आएंगे कल. यही तो बहुत बात हो रहा है ना, मोदी जी का आएंगे गवर्नमेंट. हमें पूछना चाहिए उनसे, आप क्या कर रहे हो भाई. आई एम नॉट अगेंस्ट देम, बट आई हैव राइट टू आस्क देम. All of us have a right to ask them, and I'm going to ask this question on 5th or 6th. Okay. Very funnily, the army has reduced the number of regiments. If you go through the history, it's in public domain. Earlier, we used to have 18 Pinaka regiments. Now we only have to have 12. I don't know whether that 18 is coming back or not. You also stripped the artillery of its ability to observe. Every service is going its own way, whether it's drones or rockets or missiles. There's no commonality. If we have a Pinaka, which we have made on our own, why can't the Air Force use it and make a variant out of it? Why can't the Navy mount it on their destroyers or ships? That's a very good system. I know it. Over 80 kilometers. Okay, you want to increase the range? Put the ramjet. You have the technology. Why are we not thinking together? Okay. The world is integrating its firepower, surveillance, observation through repurposed apps in battle. I spoke about it day before yesterday. small apps, cheap and small technology. How are we thinking of it? You don't need a rocket force. You need to think. See the first video of mine on military technologies of this century and its applicability in battle. The first slide I showed was you have to think. Battles have to be fought between your ears. We are not doing it. I'm giving you a very stark picture. This is what my research tells me. It's not as if we lack technology. It's not as if we lack capability. It's not as if we lack anything. We lack networking amongst ourselves. I hope this thing, next time I do on ammunition, I will do on ammunition. I put out a tweet, have a look at it. You can go to @Palipu or Shankar. Today's tweet on ammunition, a lot of people have seen it already. And let me see if I can show you the tweet on the, yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you can see it. This is the tweet. Look at it. Artillery at war. As per a report I read, the Russian artillery industry produces 12,320 artillery shells daily. This means 375 shells every month and 4.5 million shells per year. Russia still falls short of ammunition which it is importing from Iran, North Korea, or wherever. And there's a thread of 4 tweets. Have a look, because one should be very clear when we are dealing with our national security. No lying. I told you, I will not lie. I will give you the truth. So we need to think together. We need to get our act together. Okay, I'll not talk of railgun. Maybe some other day I'll talk of the railgun. I thought I'll talk of the railgun, but I'll do that separately. Okay, I have finished my talk on rockets and missiles. I'll take some questions. I know not many people are seeing it, but hopefully people will see it in due course. I read somewhere Chinese are trying to develop a missile that masquerades as a civilian aircraft by emitting certain frequencies. No, I don't think this is feasible. In today's thing, it's so transparent, everything one will come to know about. Can surface-to-air missile rockets re-engage a target after missing it on the first attempt? No. Russia is unwilling to give India Zircon technology for the BrahMos NG hypersonic missile, and we don't have an indigenous one yet. If Iran can build a hypersonic missile, why can't we? Iran doesn't have an hypersonic. Who said it does have an hypersonic? That's all. A lot of fraud goes around. We'll get the technology. Don't worry. We have done some work on it, and look, it's not necessary that you need to have a rocket system which is based on Russian technology only. You have a rocket system, hypersonic rocket system, otherwise also. Who's stopping you? Right? You can. The only thing what happens if you have a hypersonic system which is uncontrolled, or I won't say uncontrolled, without a glide vehicle or without a cruise missile, if it's a normal rocket system which goes hypersonic, the range is reduced, the range of engagement reduced. So you do make do with that, you change your story. And like I said, hypersonics are not the only way forward in battle. Okay. Yeah. You have to change with what you have. Have alternate strategies. When will ramjet artillery be introduced into the army? It will take about 2 to 3 years. That's the minimum. That's the minimum. It might take more. And at that, we will still be ahead of the curve of the rest of the world. Houthi shot down another 35 million MQ Reaper with a 10,000. Okay. Look, the point is this: what is that Reaper doing to protect? And what is that missile, this thing? So it's not a matter of how much is the cost. Once you committed a weapon, it's doing a purpose. It's protecting something. It's giving you value of information. That value of information is more to protect yourself. It's the cost of protection was the cost of expenditure. So this thing, oh, that fellow has got a $10,000 missile, and you have a $1 billion missile or UAV which has been shot down, is fraud. I don't agree with it. There's no cost on what you need to do to protect yourself. The MQ-9 protects you with its surveillance. If you lose it, put one more, because if you don't have surveillance, you're done. The MQ-9 gives you ability to designate targets. Then there are other things. It is just not yeah, I'll also send a drone which is $1,000 drone, and it's okay. But that $1,000 drone will only give you that much. The MQ-9 capability is not just over the battlefield. Just think, he can fly from anywhere to anywhere. He's got an endurance of 30 odd hours. I mean, you don't know what a drone is capable of, especially a male or a hail drone. That's why. Okay, the tenet of fire and scoot shall be even more relevant, particularly for artillery, for both field rockets. Given, yeah, I agree with you. There's no shoot and scoot is the basic thing. Funda. Pakistan could fire from civilian areas, it doesn't matter. When they fire from civilian areas, chepo them there. Wherever. Then the moment you go start firing these rockets and all, then you're going conventional. Then it is war. Then nothing matters. Okay, why Indian defense is not looking into indigenous rifles? This is not exercise and rifles. With the Red Sea at the width of the Red Sea at Yemen is 25 to 60 kilometers only. This is probably an advantage. Can the same strategy be applied in a wide ocean? Does Ukraine also have similar advantage in the Black Sea? Yes. Black Sea, did they use it to their advantage against Russia, targeting the Navy? Yes, that's what they did. You see, they turned Mahan on the head, but then Mahan also said you have to use the littorals to protect the Navy. You have to use the littorals to protect waterways. And after all, the Ukrainians, they used underwater vehicles, unmanned underwater vehicles, drones, and missiles to hit. They used a combination. Red Sea chaps are this. Houthis are also doing something like this. Okay, so wherever there is this ability to fight from the land, that's the preferred option. Ukraine also doesn't have a navy. But he sunk half the Russian navy. This chap also has nothing except these missiles, but he's done the trick. So warfare is changing. It's not as if warfare is not only cost. Warfare is beyond cost. The recent DF-17 event in Beijing may be classified. Yeah, it's not loose round. Look, again I said, technology. Does China have all the technology to do what it has to do? No. They fired somewhere, it went completely somewhere, it landed in Beijing. Thank God it didn't land in, on Xi Jinping's head for them. In fact, it's a pity that it should have landed. So, and missiles are not always precise. Everyone thinks precision. I've seen many missiles fail. Many precision systems fail, period. Yeah, Mark Sahabandhu, I'm not Jal Narayanan, he's my friend. He's somewhere else. But this is what I am. Okay. So the ballistic and MARV also re-enter at hypersonic speed. Yeah, materials are available. There's no problem. We got this material long back when Agni did the re-entry. After all, when we fired, and when did that happen? 89, long back. Okay, not even 89, 89 or 90 it was. It. Yeah, now memory fades me. 90, I think. We fired. Where's the problem? Or 89, 89. There's no issue of technology. That's why I said technology we have. What's your opinion on Iron Dome? Should India buy or not? I would prefer we make our own. Some of your statements are frightening in the event of an extended conflict. Yeah, it's frightening. We better be frightened. We must ask all these fellows who get, who keep talking of development and making great powers out of India and all that. I mean, I'm talking of all the politicians who are now asking for your votes. One man will come, become the prime minister. Ask him, what is he doing for an extended conflict? Because I'm going to ask him anyway. I've already asked him in a manner. Why is the government not addressing it due to lack of proper advisory? No, it's vested interest. We have vested interest. I'm aware of it. So, civil and military organization separation happened for 1, 2, 3 nuclear deal with your beloved country by the party in power those days. Please ask them also. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. What's your opinion on MM Narwane's book? This is not the topic. Project Kusha for LSRM, LRSAM not going anywhere soon. Oh, well, that's something which I will not like to comment on because how the projects are going and all. These are live things. We shouldn't talk about it. We'll talk of the macro issues. Okay. Views on theater command, we need it. Period. If you don't have it, there's no pro and con about it. Only pro, you need it. The con is the problems which you're going to face, you'll resolve it. Given the importance of both market and defense invest in building material science supply chains, how can we leverage expertise and resources of our worldwide diaspora to accelerate this development? Look, you need to have a plan to get them back and do work for you, and you need to identify people. People come to me and say, "Sir, can we do this for you? Can we do?" They don't know where to go. We don't have a method also. Our government is weak that way. Let me be very honest with you. Okay, very weak. I don't blame the armed forces because they are stuck. Our government and our bureaucracy are very weak on this historically. Yeah, do we have a carrier killer capability through missiles? Thank God you qualified. Otherwise, I say we have a carrier killer capability within ourselves. We kill all our carrier programs. Okay, that's our capability we have. We're all talking all nonsense. Look, if India wants to become a power, you need to have a very grounded approach to technology and indigenous development. And you need to have a lot of determination to do what you want to do. And that's what I learned. So, to be very honest, I can only crib. Uh, I put things on, indigenization path. And the moment I left, the accelerator went off for whatever reason. People found that others are, ways to. Because it was not an uncomfortable way of doing things. Because I was pretty strict. Uh, I won't let go. I would take people to task. I would insult people. And the moment I got off, Well, everyone found it easy not to take the harder path. In NDA, they taught me a prayer, and we used to, you know, do this prayer every day in the morning at 5:30 before we went for PT. What is that prayer? I mean, I don't know the full prayer, but one line I've never forgotten. That God, help me do the harder right instead of the easier wrong. It always pays, and that's what I'm doing with all of you. I know my viewership is low because everyone is looking at Dhruv Rati and some party and some Times Algebra or whatever those fellows are. Because it's election time or IPL time. But this is the harder right that I'm trying to do. And I'm glad that all of you have joined. Get people, because unless we all get together, India won't progress. Right? Uh, Thanks a lot for joining in today. Tomorrow we're going to talk of West Asia with Ambassador Tribunayat, because West Asia is where action is. Okay? Till then, good evening and Jai Hind.